But there is something going on right now where I think we can all agree that there's so many companies out there that are looking for people to hire. So if everyone is hiring, why can't anybody find a job? There's people I talk to at the gym, some young guys who are in college. They're a little worried about jobs coming after. Like, what are they gonna do after college? One of my homies, his name is Will. He looks legitimately like a Greek god Adonis. I mean, I saw him make a straight dude go gay. The dude is just well built. But it's his last year at Alabama, and he and I were just chit-chatting of like, what I'm doing, how I kind of fell into what I'm doing, and worried that like I definitely did not do the traditional way to get successful. He is following a traditional path, and he's like, I'm just worried about the job market because even though a lot of people are hiring, no, none of his friends can get a job. So I saw this video, and I mean, it's right on the money. If everyone is hiring, why can nobody get it? So just with this frame of reference, I want us
Despite the millions of job openings.
I was still talking. I want to take the video. Let's react to it, and let's see what this guy has to say. The video is from Moon. The Moon made this, not the sun, but the Moon. We subscribe to the Moon. We like the Moon. If you guys want to follow the video, you could check the link in the YouTube video because you bet your sweet dollar it's gonna be turned into a YouTube video. Let's react to this bitch.
Apparently out there, it's harder than ever. Despite the millions of job openings that are apparently out there, it's harder than ever to get hired. The news is constantly telling us that companies are desperate for workers and that there's tons of jobs just waiting to be filled. Meanwhile, there's stories everywhere of people sending out tens or hundreds of applications without ever getting a single interview. It just doesn't make sense. So what really happened to turn finding work into a full-time job? But a few decades ago, even when there were job shortages, it was still much easier to get a good job. The advice the boomers give of putting on a tie and asking the manager for a job really worked. All it took was enough tries before you finally met someone who liked you. Today,
I'm not gonna lie, throughout all of my personal times of getting a job, I walked into a place, networked with people, dropped off a resume, made a joke, and just I don't know. I feel like a lot of the good things that have happened in my life have serendipitously kind of happened. So I feel for somebody like Lauren is a much better example when it comes to this because she went to UGA, followed the traditional path, was doing things correctly, and even though she would apply to all of these jobs that she honestly the workplace would be lucky to have somebody like her work there, she would never even get the time or day. So I totally get that. This is crazy.
you could try this thousands of times and you probably still wouldn't get a chance. One difference that's easy to notice is that the bar for entry has gotten significantly higher for most jobs. Before 2000, a good college degree was almost a guarantee of a good job. Companies would compete.
Yeah, they want you get an entry level job with 3 years of experience. It's like how this is entry level. How am I supposed to have any experience with an entry level job? And as soon as you get experience, you're moving up in the ranks. You're not going to stay at the entry level job. The fuck?
With each other to get the most recent graduates. They were forced to offer a wage that could support a family. If they didn't, they wouldn't get any employees. But now the tables have completely turned, and they're only really interested in the very top % of students. What used to amount to a free entry ticket has become the very minimum of what they expect.
It's actually not true. What he just said is not true. They're not worried about the top students. The top students that fit a certain criteria. We know that DEI is all over, especially corporate America. So you have to be a top black student. So, and if, or I don't want to say black, we'll say Hispanic because my last name is Rodriguez, right? So we'll go with me as the minority. They want a top Rodriguez in there. Well, the top Rodriguez may only have been just a normal Joe Blow of the class. So this person who's actually in the top percentage of the class who actually did their P's and Q's don't get rewarded because they're not a part of that minority.
That makes sense. Jobs requiring
picking up what I'm putting down.
Only a bit over 30% of American adults actually have one. But you don't just need a good degree, of course. You also need real-world experience even for so-called entry-level positions. Companies are so picky now that they're asking people who have just left college to have years worth of experience, all for a salary they can barely survive on. The only way to get this is to work while studying full-time, which is rarely possible if you need to do an internship for the field you plan on entering.
I feel like you got to understand the world that you're going into. Just like if you're going to want to be a neurosurgeon or just not even going to go to the extreme, if you want to go into the medical field and be a nurse, their residency, their workload is crazy. It's no surprise going into that. So when it happens, you're not allowed to bitch about it. You just have to grit down and push through. I mean, I guess you could bitch about it so long that you're gritting down and pushing through, but it's the same thing with if you're going to college, better believe that majority of people are going to have to work a full-time job while trying to pursue their degree. And once more, I'm going to brag on Lo. She had two. Not only did she do student activities where she worked at the UGA softball games, the basketball games, got to see like Anthony Edwards while he was in college play, while working at a hotel and going to school. Like, it could be done, and not only can it be done, it has to be done, because that's just how the world works, and you have to learn how to adapt. Just like when you go to middle school to high school for the first time, you start or I guess it's elementary to middle for me. When you start moving around to different classrooms, that was a really daunting task at first, and then within a week you kind of get used to it. Same thing in high school, you get a little bit more freedom and responsibility. College, you get a little bit more freedom and responsibility, and with that requires consistent action. And if you get lazy and you slack, you got to deal with the consequences.
The past always looks better in hindsight, of course. There were still job shortages and people still got rejected, but the key difference between then and now is the massive rise in competition because of the internet. If you were a company in the 1980s looking to hire
Alright,
a
I'll
few
stop
new
trying to pause
employees,
this.
you didn't really have many options. Small companies could only recruit through in-person events, word of mouth, or physical leaflets posted to boards. It was a slow, long process with only a few applicants to choose from. Hiring managers had to treat each applicant like a real person, using their own judgment to figure out who would be the best fit. Large companies only had a few more tools at their disposal. With their size, they could get a foot in the door at colleges or high schools and hoover up applications that way. But even then, they were still much more limited. So just think about how much this process has changed in such a short time. If any company wants a new employee, all they need to do is put a listing out on one of the many websites for that explicit purpose, and it'll almost immediately be seen by thousands and thousands of people, along with a whole wave of different recruiters who will spread it even more. Without any barriers to applying, like showing up in person, these jobs can get thousands of applicants. There's no reason not to try your luck, so why not send off 50 applications? As it's gotten harder and people need to send even more applications to get a chance, it's only gotten worse. If you're using your personal phone number to close business deals, you're not just mixing work and play, but you're sabotaging your chances of success. Recently, I've been doing a bunch of traveling, and I've been trying to operate my business through just my personal phone. It was a terrible idea. You can't really communicate with us. This is the year to level up your business and lower your costs. Go to trynextdiva.com/ It's exactly the same thing that's happened to dating. Modern technology has globalized the potential pool of competition. Finding a job or a partner used to be so much more personal. It all hinged on the impression you gave to the person across from you. Now it's a total numbers game. How you fill out your application form or your Tinder profile has much more of an impact than pretty much anything else. And as a result, the standards have also gone up by ludicrous amounts on both job sites and dating sites. It makes people and companies think they have far higher standards because they have so much more choice. The reality on the ground, though, hasn't really changed, and the effects this has had on the job market have been catastrophic. It's led to the whole process getting
With
much
so
more
many people
dehumanizing for
entering that they
applicants
feel
who
like
have
the
been
barrier to
turned into
entry
numbers
is
on a
much higher.
spreadsheet. So those are the biggest reasons why finding a job used to be much easier than it is today. But the real devil is in the details. Even with all of these changes, finding work really shouldn't take hours of searching and hundreds of applications. The reason it's all so frustrating are the things that companies have done to deal with this new reality. So let's explore the different ways they found to make getting hired even harder. Today, the problem for companies have been
How did it get
completely
even harder?
reversed.
Because
Instead of
filling out LinkedIn applications for hours on end is mentally exhausting. It breaks you down spiritually. How can they make it even harder?
not getting good enough applications to choose from, they get hundreds or thousands more than they need. Every time they need to hire someone new, it means reading through hundreds.
So they add a test. They add the skill test. I know exactly where this is going to. Where if you want to apply, guess what? You got to take a test if you want to apply for this job. You really want this job, right?
Of applications and filtering out all the ones that aren't suited. In a perfect world, companies would put more time and effort into this, but we all know that hasn't really happened. Instead, they've turned to one of the most frustrating and dehumanizing parts of the modern job market: automatic rejection systems. Today, over 97% of Fortune 500 companies use what's referred to as an ATS, an applicant tracking system. The basic idea is simple.
So now you have to get past AI. Excuse me. So not only do you have to get past a hiring manager, you have to get past the AI hiring manager. And can we imagine how much of a bitch that Karen AI, you know that's named Karen too, the one who's like assorting all of these,
ATS
automatically
works like a
rejecting it?
sieve, filtering out any applications that don't meet whatever requirements the employer has set. When they first came into widespread use in the early 2000s with the rise of the internet, they could only deal with a few basic questions. If someone ticks the box saying they're not legally allowed to work, for example, they'd get rejected. Today, ATS companies advertise their services to the public like this is still the only thing they do. Companies like Greenhouse, Lever, or Workday have to admit their products automatically reject people. It's far too obvious for them to deny it, but they try to give the impression that it's only a few legal questions that do this. Of course, this isn't the case at all. Rejection questions, where giving the wrong answer puts your CV in the reject pile, are everywhere today. In fact, they're only the first hurdle an applicant needs to get past to beat the machine. As the internet becomes the main place to search for jobs, ATS companies had to adapt. They needed to keep up with the increasing amount of applications, so they added more rejection questions. Instead of just filtering out the people you legally can't hire, they started giving companies the option to reject people based on whatever legal criteria they wanted. Your address, your experience, any question they ask can make the difference between getting an interview or getting ghosted. Normally, they don't outright reject CVs, of course, they just rank them all based on the criteria they're using. Technically, all an ATS really does is turn tons of applications into a ranked list of candidates. If you end up on the bottom of the pile though, or anywhere near except the very top, you'll never get looked at anyway. An ATS probably won't automatically reject you, it will just put you so far back in the queue that you might as well not even be there. But even this approach still left too many applications.
That's like being on the like for marketing. If you want to market your business and you have to pay on Google, if you're not on the first page of Google, your business is never going to get seen. So if you're not on the top of the list here, if you're not basically marketing yourself and paying to get on top of the list, you're not going to get it.
For companies to look through. To fix it, they made the ATS able to read the CV itself. Today, these systems can go through applications and pick out certain keywords they want to see. If you didn't use those certain words they wanted, you'll end up at the back of the queue and eventually get rejected. They can also read how much experience you have in certain areas, making note of everyone who doesn't make the cut. Even today, these systems are far from perfect.
So what is this going to do to society?
They use in the job
like
posting,
how we
your
interact
CV
with
can
each
often
other.
end up on the bottom of the pile, regardless of whether you're qualified or not.
Being
Similar
programmed
problems
to
can come from how you format
and respond in a certain way.
Some templates don't get read as well by the system, meaning they miss out important parts and unfairly
like
reject people. There are ways to avoid this, like making sure you use the same words they use in the advert, or using a standard template that the system will be designed to read.
See what I'm saying?
At the end of the day, though, it's not something that people should have to
do. Are
Rewriting
we
your entire CV
templates?
every time is
Are we really becoming less unique and less creative?
So soul-crushing, especially when you just get ghosted over and over again. Pretty much every single company in the West uses these systems now, but even with almost 100% adoption, the situation could still get worse. AI is perfectly suited for use in an ATS. It's already widespread, and it makes these programs far better at understanding people's CVs and filtering people out. So companies will be eager to cut out just a little bit more of the human element from finding new employees, as they might just save a little bit extra on personnel costs. This is the crux of the problem with ATS and how they've taken over the entire process. Finding a job used to be a human experience, where you were in at least limited control of the situation. Obviously, you couldn't make it a certainty that you get hired, but you at least got a chance to make a unique impression on whoever did decide. By turning all of the applicants into a set of data, companies dehumanize the entire thing. So out of the thousands of applicants there usually are for each good job, you have to stand out in spite of a system intentionally turning you into a data point on a spreadsheet. But even this incredibly infuriating roll of the dice is still the best outcome you can have when applying to one of these jobs. People talk about the 1,000-to-1 odds of getting a job once it's posted, and they might think they're over-exaggerating. In reality though, the odds are even worse. A large part of the rejections people get are because the jobs they're applying to don't actually exist. It's a problem that's only been getting worse.
What? Oh, it's probably because the job online is posted, but it's already been filled, but it hasn't been taken down. So it's like a fake job.
Ratio of people getting hired to job openings in the US actually fell below 0.5 in 2023, which means at least half of all job openings are for so-called ghost jobs, which are never going to get anyone hired in the first place. So let's explore the insidious reason companies keep these listings up.
So now not only do you have to say the right things and respond a certain way, set yourself a very particular way so that you can at least get bumped higher on the SEO of this ATS system. Now you have to hope that it's actual a job that's real and vacant, not already been filled and just not taken down.
Up, and why so many people's time is wasted by them. Ghost jobs are everywhere on sites like Indeed. You can apply to a job listing and wait anxiously for a response, but after weeks or months you either get rejected or you don't hear back at all. In a lot of these cases, it probably has nothing to do with you or your CV. Instead, it was all probably because the company wasn't planning on hiring anyone anyway. In a survey of over 1,000 hiring managers, over 2/3 admitted to leaving their job postings up for a month. 10% had left listings on the internet for over 6 months without filling the role. There's a ton of different reasons that companies do this today, none of which are a good excuse for the time they waste. Sometimes people already know who's actually going to get the job. Some executives might need something to do, or maybe they've already decided on an internal candidate. Maybe they're just going to dump the workload on one of their current employees but need to make it look like they tried to find someone else. It barely takes them any time or resources at all to drop some templated job listing online, and the longer they leave it up, the higher the chance that they'll hook that magical unicorn employee that they've been looking for. The person is qualified and experienced but will probably work for under market rate and won't ask for any benefits. Other times these listings will just be there for appearances. It looks good for the company if they're growing and hiring new people, for example. They might also think that the current employees will wonder who's getting replaced and work harder to avoid it. There's a million sleazy reasons for companies to create fake listings. The job sites will be happy to take their business. And that's another reason it's such a massive problem today. The job boards actively want dead listings. Fake listings boost their numbers and let them brag about the thousands of jobs they have available, giving this illusion of plenty even when there's only scraps on the table. These websites aren't there to cater to job seekers. They only need to do the bare minimum to stay functional. If you're not paying for it, then you're the product, not the customer. Job seekers on these sites don't have any agency. For most, it's a choice between using them or going hungry. The real customers are the companies who post the adverts and pay for the extras. If they want to post dead listings, why would Indeed or any other job board stop them? All of these things have made finding a job that much harder. Today, it's an excruciating trial of patience unless you get unusually lucky early on in your search. Of course, if there is a problem, even one that's been entirely fabricated, an industry will spring up to solve it. Middlemen and recruitment agencies used to be necessary parts of the professional world. If you couldn't get your job seen by the right people, they could bridge the gap and find good candidates for the opening. You would think that this instant communication and the ability to have your job opening seen by thousands of people in seconds would have damaged this industry, but instead the recruitment industry has grown massively in the past few decades. In the UK, the recruitment industry grew to be worth over 140 billion
corporations
at the end of 2022,
outsourcing
20
their
billion more than just 3 years
hiring
before
to
that.
these people instead of LinkedIn.
30,000 recruitment companies now employ over 200,000
They're still just posting on
people.
LinkedIn just
For
to have a check on the
considerable
box
sum,
for a
they'll
thing to
eventually
do for
find you a
somebody,
job
like a
if they
hiring
don't just
manager,
string you along for more
making sure that
payments.
they're
Even in the
doing
best
some
of
of their job
cases,
instead of
all these
completely
agencies
outsourcing.
do is reverse the changes of the past 20 years and give you a real shot at a job opening. Most of the time though, they're only really solving a problem that the wider industry created for people in the first place. It's a whole lot of money which only keeps flowing
created
in
a
because
problem,
of how
sold a
hard it is
solution.
for regular people
Crazy.
to do it themselves now. So maybe you got lucky with automated systems, or perhaps you went through the hassle of dealing with recruiters. But either way, you've somehow got yourself an interview. Except even that crucial stage of the process has been changed beyond recognition. While there may
Because
be a
of
short,
Zoom?
often meaningless interview towards the end of the process, tons of companies have substituted that for questionnaires and tests instead. While the questions might vary, most of these kinds of tests are pretty similar.
I've
Some
never
of
had
them
to do
might
this
ask you
for,
about what
an
you would do in an imaginary situation, supposedly to test your critical thinking. Others ask the kinds of questions where you can either lie and give the obviously correct answer, or be honest and get marked down. All of them though are a complete waste of time. It hasn't stopped anyone from Microsoft
always
to
answer
Walmart
honestly.
to all of these companies using them to sort through potential employees. In fact, big retail chains are some of the most infamous companies for just giving people these tests instead of ever actually
Like Walmart assessment test, like if there was a question, like if I was to apply there, and it was like a explain your answer, it's like you see somebody stealing something. What is your answer? I'm gonna tackle them like I'm a Georgia Bulldog linebacker. Maybe, try to take them through something and make them let them know, hey, you can't steal some shit, bro. Go pay for that shit. And in reality, that'd probably get me flagged because I'm going to become more of a liability just because I'm going to be seen as reckless endangerment, even though I'm trying to, theoretically, in that sense, protect the store. You know what I'm saying?
interviewing them. Why they need to know your star sign to see if you can stack shelves fast enough is another matter entirely, but the reason Walmart is the most enthusiastic about
Like,
these
I
tests
see-
above all other companies will become
I
clear
see somebody
soon
like
enough.
stick.
These tests don't come close to
They're
giving
trying to walk
employers
out?
information on the skills and experience that candidates might have either. Most people rationally just try to figure out what answers they want you to pick. The integral question of whether you'd be a good fit, on which
But,
the
like,
entire process should depend
aggressive.
on, has almost been completely forgotten. Today, even references are nearly always just a confirmation that you worked at a company for a certain amount of time. Any information on whether you
Hey,
were
that's my
actually a
margarita. I
good
can't drink
employee
that
can't be given
yet. I gotta
anymore
wait at least
because
10
you can
minutes.
sue people who give you bad references. It means that companies just don't make themselves liable. So if they don't actually measure your aptitude, what's the point of all these aptitude tests? A lot of the time, the actual content of the questions doesn't matter. The main thing they're testing people on is how eager they are to jump through the hoops in the first place.
Yep, they're trying to get the most desperate one of y'all. The one real, hey, here's a 100-question test. Before we do this interview, I need you to do a 100-question test. Is that okay with you? If you're a sane, normal person, not uberly desperate and has a little bit more options on the table, you're gonna say, fuck no. Because we're not in high school anymore. We're not in college. Why are we? We're grown ass people. Why are we doing a multiple choice test for a job? But you talk to me like a human. Let's you know, like, you're removing the human element out of it. At the end of the day, if you've played sports or if you work at a corporate job, one thing is going to be the same: is you're going to have a group of people working together to complete a certain task, whether it's to win a game or to sell more of a product. And if you have a group of people, all of those people are going to have different personalities. So sometimes somebody might be the right fit for the job, like perfect, but they're a cock to work with. And then you have somebody who's 9 out of 10 is almost there, who maybe with a little bit of help from other people, but has the gumption, the building blocks of somebody who can work well with others, who's coachable, who's willing to grow. I would choose that person 10 out of 10 times. I don't care how good you are. And this could be in sports. You could be the fastest, best athlete in the world, but if you're an absolute cock, you're not going to win games. You may put points on the board, but you're not going to be the one to single-handedly win a game. That is a team thing. So I think if you're doing these tests at 100%, like all of this, you're removing the aspect of seeing how that person is and how are they going to fit on the team. Does that make sense?
If you can see through the corporate language and spend the time figuring out what they want you to say, you're already conforming. It's also why there are often multiple different tests at different stages in the hiring process. The more of their hoops you'll jump through, the more likely you are to be a good corporate drone. Walmart's tests have the same purpose as the humiliating dances they make their employees do. They break people down just a little bit more. Another reason for these tests has nothing to do with the candidates at all. Instead, they're in place because
And you may
the
be a
upper
strong
management
rock
has
now,
no
but
faith in the people further
after
down
being
the
broken
pyramid to
down
choose good
time,
employees. Once
week after
companies
week,
start
month
hiring
after
by
month,
questionnaire,
year over
they
year,
can take middle
decade over
management out of
decade,
the loop entirely.
you're a
It means
little
they
pebble.
can put even more of their
No
faith
longer
and
a
trust
boulder.
into data and spreadsheets over real human judgment. With all of the changes we've seen in hiring in the past 2 decades, a common theme has emerged. All of these changes take the power out of the hands of the applicant and put them into the hands of corporate management. The process of getting your applications noticed is an exhausting numbers game. Either getting lucky or sending off dozens or hundreds of applications is the only way people can actually survive.
I looked at the
Good boy.
data. If you just applied to a job through a job board, the odds of you getting hired were about 3%. So
Okay.
you got to apply
What is
to
it
a
now?
lot of different jobs
Yeah.
in order to have a chance to
At
get
least
them. And you're gonna get
33
lots
jobs,
and
right?
lots of just
Have a
no
99%
responses.
chance.
Even if you do get through the first stage,
I don't know if that's how that math
employers will
works.
happily waste months of your time. They'll put you through endless different stages of interviews, tests, and trial periods, all to just ghost you after
I
they
told
choose
you the
somebody
test
else.
would come up.
It's a truly dystopian part of our modern society that all of these barriers have been put in the way of people simply surviving. And the reward at the end of this arduous journey is just usually a job that pays the same wage as it did 20 years ago, before all of this even happened. In today's economic climate, it's a question of survival. Every paycheck can make or break someone's entire life. These artificial delays have done serious damage to society and eroded what little trust there was between employers and employees. So you can play nice,
Ever seen
try
that
and
movie
dupe the
with Will Smith?
system,
I
but
encourage
never
everyone to
really
go
buy
see
into
that.
any of the rhetoric about family or trust.
Especially with
Don't fool
this
yourself
kind of
into
video.
thinking these companies actually care about you
Your
or an
happiness.
equal system or any other garbage. It's a myth that everybody's hiring, as it's been shown repeatedly that there's much more to this equation that first meets the eye.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna reiterate what I said. I feel like, and this video just kind of lays it out, that the human element is just not even slowly, has been quickly removed from the interviewing process, and I feel very blessed that I have not had a lot of this. I did work in corporate America for a little bit. I did work at Telemundo. I swear to God, it's just because my last name's Rodriguez. So I did have to go through, like different interviewing processes and one interview and a second and then a third, and like had one of them was in person, the other two were on Zoom. And I mean, even on a Zoom call, like even online, we can share some personality, and you kind of pick up what I'm putting down, and you can kind of get the gist of who I am as a person. But it's only a gist; it's not the real thing.